If your mind is weak, your actions become weak. If your thoughts are negative, your future slowly becomes negative too. Most people are not trapped by life. They are trapped by their mindset. The same fear, the same excuses, the same habits, repeated every day. And over time, those thoughts become identity. Success begins in the mind before it appears in reality. Now listen carefully. You cannot build a successful life with a defeated mindset. You must train your mind differently, feed it differently, protect it differently. Because whatever you repeat daily, your mind eventually believes. If you repeat doubt, you become doubtful. If you repeat discipline, you become disciplined. That is the power of mental programming. A strong life begins with a strong mind. And the moment you change your thinking, you begin changing your future. Reprogram your mind, and success will no longer feel impossible. You become what you think about all day long. Think about that carefully. Your thoughts are not small things. They shape your actions. They shape your habits. And eventually, they shape your entire life. Now listen carefully. Most people try to change their life from the outside. More money, better opportunities, different circumstances. But real change begins inside. Because if the mind does not change, nothing truly changes. A negative mind will find problems in every opportunity. A disciplined mind will find opportunities in every problem. That is the power of thinking. I once realized something important. The biggest battle in life was not with other people. It was with my own thoughts. The doubt, the fear, the excuses. I'm not ready. What if I fail? Maybe I can't do it. And slowly, those thoughts began controlling my actions. Because the mind believes what it hears repeatedly. Poor thinking creates poor results. That is why mindset matters so much. Now understand this deeply. Your life moves in the direction of your dominant thoughts. If you constantly think about failure, you hesitate. If you constantly think about excuses, you avoid action. But if you train your mind for growth, your behavior begins to change. That is where transformation starts. Not in your bank account, not in your environment, but in your thinking. Now let me ask you something. What thoughts are you repeating every day? Are you feeding your mind strength or weakness? Because every thought plants a seed, and over time, that seed grows. A man who constantly says, life is hard, usually creates a hard life. But a man who says, I will find a way, begins developing resilience. That is why successful people protect their mindset carefully. They read good books, listen to wisdom, spend time around growth-minded people, because they understand something important. The mind is programmable, and whatever you feed it daily becomes your mental reality. Now listen carefully. You cannot think like an average person and expect an extraordinary life. You must think differently, act differently, respond differently. That is the beginning of success. For your life to improve, you must improve. And improvement starts with thought. Now imagine changing your inner conversation. Instead of, I can't, you say, I'm learning. Instead of, I always fail, you say, I grow through mistakes. Those small changes seem simple, but repeated daily, they reshape identity, and identity shapes destiny. Now understand this deeply. Your mind can become your greatest weapon or your greatest prison. The choice depends on what you allow into it. So guard your thoughts carefully. Protect your mindset. Train your thinking daily. Because when your thinking improves, your decisions improve, your habits improve, your confidence improves, and eventually, your entire life begins to improve. Change your thinking first, and your life will slowly follow. You must stand guard at the door of your mind. Think about that. Most people are careful about what they eat, but careless about what they feed their mind. And that is dangerous, because your mind absorbs everything. The conversations, the negativity, the distractions, the excuses, and over time, those things shape your thinking. Now listen carefully. A negative environment creates negative thinking, and negative thinking creates a negative life. That is why many people stay stuck. Not because they lack ability, but because their mind is filled with garbage, fear, doubt, complaining, excuses, repeated every single day. I remember a season in life when I constantly surrounded myself with negativity. People who complained about everything. People who blamed the world. People who had no vision. And slowly, without realizing it, I started thinking like them. That is how influence works. You become like the people you spend the most time with. That is why protecting your mind matters so much. Now, understand this deeply. Not everything deserves access to your mind. Not every voice deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves your belief. A high-quality life requires mental discipline. You must learn to filter what enters your mind, because whatever enters repeatedly eventually becomes belief. If you constantly hear, "You can't do it," "Life is unfair," "Success is impossible," your mind slowly accepts those ideas. And once the mind accepts limitation, action becomes weak. Now listen carefully. Negative programming does not always look dangerous. Sometimes it looks normal. Endless distractions, mindless scrolling, constant gossip, complaining conversations, small things, repeated daily. And slowly, they drain your focus, drain your energy, drain your ambition. Don't let weak thinking rent space in your mind. That is powerful advice, because successful people are intentional about mental input. They read books that strengthen the mind. Listen to ideas that inspire growth. Spend time with disciplined people, not because they are perfect, but because they understand the power of influence. Now let me ask you something. What are you feeding your mind every day? Fear or faith? Excuses or responsibility? Distraction or growth? Because your future is connected to that answer. Now understand this. You cannot feed your mind negativity all day and expect confidence. You cannot surround yourself with lazy thinking and expect discipline. The mind reflects what it consumes. That is why you must become selective, protective, intentional. A strong mind is built deliberately. Every day, stand guard at the door of your mind. That means protecting your peace, protecting your focus, protecting your standards. Because once your thinking improves, everything else begins improving too. Your attitude changes, your habits change, your decisions change, and slowly, your life changes. Now let me leave you with this. The world is full of noise, negativity, distractions, but a disciplined person chooses carefully what they allow into their mind, because they understand one simple truth. If you keep feeding your mind garbage, your life will eventually reflect it. We are what we repeatedly do. Think about that. Your life is not shaped in one moment. It is shaped in repetition. What you do daily, what you ignore daily, what you allow daily, that is what builds your future. Now listen carefully. A high life is not built by motivation. It is built by habits. Simple habits, repeated habits, disciplined habits, because repetition is powerful. It does not just shape actions. It shapes identity. I once noticed something in my own life. Small actions I repeated every day started becoming automatic. At first, it was difficult, forced, uncomfortable, but over time, it became natural. That is how the mind works. Repetition is the mother of learning, and repetition is also the father of discipline. Now understand this deeply. Every habit you repeat is reprogramming your mind. If you repeat laziness, you become lazy. If you repeat excuses, you become dependent on excuses. If you repeat discipline, you become disciplined. It is that simple, but not that easy, because habits are not changed in one day. They are changed in small battles. The battle to wake up early. The battle to stay focused. The battle to avoid distraction. The battle to keep your promises. These battles seem small, but they define your life. Now listen carefully. Most people underestimate small habits, but small habits create big consequences. A small distraction today becomes a wasted year tomorrow. A small discipline today becomes a powerful future tomorrow. That is the truth. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Now imagine two men. One repeats comfort. The other repeats discipline. One scrolls endlessly. The other reads, learns, grows. One avoids effort. The other builds consistency. Years pass, and their lives become completely different. Not because of one big decision, but because of daily repetition. Now understand this deeply. Your mind is always being programmed. If you do not control it, something else will. That is why habits matter. They take control of your direction, so you must choose them carefully. Choose discipline over delay. Choose action over excuses. Choose growth over comfort. Because every choice is a signal to your mind, and your mind listens carefully. At first, it resists change, but with repetition, it adapts, it learns, it transforms. Now let me ask you something. What are you repeating every day? Because your habits are speaking louder than your words. They are telling the truth about your future, not what you say you want, but what you actually do. Now understand this. You do not need to change your entire life at once. You only need to change your repetition. One habit at a time. One discipline at a time. One improvement at a time. And slowly, your identity begins to shift. Small disciplines repeated daily lead to massive results. That is the secret. And once you understand it, you stop chasing motivation. You start building systems. And those systems build your life. Repetition does not just create habits. It creates the person you become, what you see in your mind, you can hold in your hand. Think about that. Every great life begins twice. First in the mind, then in reality. But most people never see it clearly. They wake up, they react, they survive the day without direction, without vision, without clarity. Now listen carefully. Your mind is always creating images, either by design or by default. If you do not intentionally choose your vision, your fears will choose it for you. And that is where many people get stuck. They visualize failure. They imagine problems. They expect disappointment. And slowly, their life starts matching that image. Because the mind follows what it sees most clearly. Where the mind goes, energy flows. Now understand this deeply. Visualization is not fantasy. It is mental training. It is teaching your mind what to expect, what to believe, what to pursue. I once realized something powerful. When I started seeing my goals clearly in my mind, my actions started changing automatically. Not because life changed, but because my focus changed. And focus changes everything. Now listen carefully. A high-value man does not live without vision. He carries it daily. He sees where he is going, even when he is not there yet. He does not wait for proof. He builds belief first. Faith sees the invisible and achieves the impossible. That is how success begins. Now imagine two men. One sees problems. The other sees possibilities. One focuses on what is missing. The other focuses on what is possible. One shrinks under pressure. The other grows under vision. That is the difference. Now understand this deeply. Your mind cannot tell the difference between real experience and imagined experience. That is why visualization is powerful. Because what you repeatedly see in your mind starts shaping your emotions, your confidence, your decisions, and eventually, your actions. Now let me ask you something. What are you visualizing every day? Failure or success? Doubt or growth? Because your inner images are silently building your outer world. Now listen carefully. If you want a better life, you must first create a better mental picture. See yourself disciplined. See yourself focused. See yourself winning small battles. Not once, but repeatedly, daily. Because repetition builds belief, and belief builds action. Now understand this. You cannot consistently act beyond the level of your self-image. So if you want to rise, you must first upgrade your vision. A man becomes what he constantly sees in his mind. That is the truth. Now begin to think bigger. See further. Imagine better. Not to escape reality, but to shape it. Because every achievement starts as a mental picture, a decision, a vision, a belief. And when you train your mind to see success, you begin to move toward it naturally. Visualize the life you want, and your mind will begin building it every day. Life is not just about what happens to you. It's about what happens inside you. Think about that. Two people can face the same situation, same pressure, same struggle, same challenge, but they respond differently. One breaks down, the other builds up. And the difference is not the situation, it is mental strength. Now listen carefully. Mental strength is not something you are born with. It is something you build, day by day, choice by choice, thought by thought. I once learned something important. The mind is like a battlefield, and every day, thoughts are fighting for control. Positive thoughts, negative thoughts, fearful thoughts, disciplined thoughts, and whatever wins that battle shapes your life. Protect your mind, and you protect your future. Now understand this deeply. A weak mind reacts to everything. A strong mind responds with control. A weak mind panics under pressure. A strong mind stays calm and focused. A weak mind gets influenced easily. A strong mind filters everything carefully. That is the difference. Now listen carefully. The world will always try to enter your mind. Through negativity, through distraction, through doubt, through fear. And if you are not careful, it will take control of your thinking. That is why protection matters. A high-value man does not allow every thought to stay. He questions them. He filters them. He rejects what weakens him. Because he understands something powerful. If your mind is not protected, your life will not be stable. A disciplined mind creates a disciplined life. Now imagine two men. One allows every thought to enter. The other filters every thought carefully. One becomes confused. The other becomes focused. One is easily distracted. The other is deeply centered. That is the difference. Now understand this deeply. Mental strength is built in small moments. When you choose not to react emotionally, when you choose discipline,